Are you scared of losing your child? Are you worried that as time goes by, they're getting further and further disconnected from you and the family? That the conflicts are increasing, that the length at which your child will go is getting greater and greater? If you're worried about losing your child, or you can see that parenting's just not going the way you want and you're worried about what could come in the future, then this is the podcast for you. I'll be sharing with you the 3 stages of disconnected parenting, where the disconnection starts much earlier on than we realize. It doesn't start when your child starts rebelling. And if you catch it early enough, you can save yourself a lot of heartache and grief. We'll also be discussing the 3 most common mindset mistakes that Muslim mothers are unknowingly making that pushes their child further away from them, when really all they want to do is draw them close. This is definitely one for you if you feel that you've lost yourself in your parenting, if you're losing your child and you want to get back on track. Stay tuned, you're going to love it. Welcome to the Happy Home Podcast, where we help Muslim mothers create success and happiness in their personal, professional and family life and raise their children as happy, pious and productive Muslims. My name is Sayed-Hossen and I am your host and the founder of the Happy Home Institute. I recently shared a testimonial of a mother who came to me for help because in an argument she had asked her daughter to leave the house, thinking that she couldn't take it anymore and wanted her to leave. But as soon as her daughter walked out, the mother felt unbearable regret and grief. She messaged me telling me that she had been crying so much that her tears had dried up. Now this mother immediately joined my Happy Home program for help, and I coached and advised her on what's really going on with them and the dynamic that's pushing them apart, and how to bring her daughter home and start bonding instead. After becoming clear on the issues and the next step to take, this mother followed my advice and was able to speak to her daughter in such a way that calmed her daughter down and brought her back home. The following day, the mother sends me another message, telling me how her and her daughter had been bonding that evening and how she could see a completely different side to her daughter. Now, the point of this testimonial was to share with you how, if we as a parent change our approach with our child, we will bring out a different side to our children. Overnight, you will see a night and day difference, just as this sister did. We are now continuing to work together to strengthen their bond and help them overcome the real underlying issues that cause their disconnection in the first place. Doing this work is so important because otherwise what happens is, we can bring our children home, we can calm down, but the issue keeps resurfacing until both parent and child starts to give up because they've tried so many times that they can't bear the hurt and pain of disappointment anymore. They start to think perhaps it's simply easier for them to have a distant relationship because they are both so desperate for some emotional security and stability that they can't cope with the highs and lows anymore. But the truth is that, as with this mother and every mother in the world, no matter what your child says and does, the moment your child walks out the door is the moment that your heart breaks. She might have thought that she'll feel peace, but loss and regret is actually worse than the emotional highs and lows, because now it's just low. There's no pleasure in anything when we feel like we've failed ourselves and failed our child. So if this is resonating with you and you're struggling with your relationship with your child and you can see that there's more lows than highs at the moment, so you know that things aren't going well, but you definitely do not want to lose your child, then this podcast is for you. I speak to so many mothers in your situation where they are losing hope, fearing it's too late, but wondering, have I done enough? Was it my fault? Then, like them, you know that this is a place you don't want to be. It keeps you up at night. The fear of waiting for something bad to happen, like your car is about to collide with a brick wall and there's nothing you can do about it. The anxiety is unbearable. You're on edge at home. And outside the home, you just can't relax anymore and be yourself. So in the end, unable to take it anymore, most mothers end up asking their child to leave. But what they don't realize is that this is the final push, but the pushing actually started a while ago. And it doesn't have to end up like this. By realizing how we innocently push our child away, we can actually start drawing them close instead. After all, that is what we really want as mothers. So here are the 3 critical mindset mistakes that we make when we fear losing our child. And I'm going to share them with you, but I need to share them with you in context of what's been happening in the home. You see, there are 3 stages of disconnected parenting. When that disconnection happened with your child, you didn't just wake up one day and, you and your child were walking on eggshells around each other, or full-blown arguments, wanting to get away from each other. It didn't just happen like that. The first stage of disconnected parenting is where, actually, as a mother, we find parenting hard, overwhelming, stressful. We're not sure if we're doing things the right way. We're trying our best, but we find that we are changing as a person. We're not the same anymore. We either become strict and militant and controlling, or we become unsure and we lose confidence in ourselves, of whether we're doing the right thing. And instead, we give our children everything, hoping they will listen. Either way, we find ourselves at extremes, unable to find the middle ground. And you'll know if this is where you're at or you've been there, because at that point you start feeling disconnected from yourself, the old you. You're not relaxed and smiling anymore. You're unsure, you're tense, you're stressed. And the disconnection happens first in the parenting, when you feel disconnected from either who you once were or who you are outside the home. When you become 2 different people, in the home and out the home, then the first stage happens where you feel disconnected with yourself. The second stage of disconnected parenting, how this then, progresses and escalates, is where we can see that actually things aren't working because our children are either not listening to us, they're arguing, answering back, or they're doing things behind our back. Now, we can see that they're not turning out the way we hoped, and we start getting frustrated and angry towards our child. Why are they not listening? We're working so hard, we're putting ourselves under such immense stress and pressure to raise them in the best way, and yet they're not listening. And this brings out an even worse side to us, because now we're shouting at our child constantly, we're telling them off, or at the other extreme where we're disengaged, we're ignoring them, we're switching up, we're withdrawing our love and affection. Now, at this point, the second disconnection happens. We are disconnecting from our child and they're disconnecting from us. As this happens, you'll enter the third stage of disconnected parenting, where your child starts to rebel even more. Their behavior worsens. Because of that, they're fighting back, they're shouting, the argument, they're pushing at the boundaries. They might even be swearing, hitting, going out without permission, indulging in haram, leaving the deen. What you see there is just a lot of disconnection and conflict, and it becomes really heightened. At this point, home is far from being a happy place. In fact, what happens is, you're waiting for them to grow up so that it can end. You've done your responsibility, and they are waiting for the day that they can just leave home and never have to see the family again. Whichever stage of parenting you're at, the disconnected parenting, stage 1, 2, or 3, I have a specific plan and program in place in the Happy Home School of Parenting for each stage of these, disconnected parenting stages that will help you get back on track with your child. Because obviously, if you're at stage 1, don't wait till stage 2 or stage 3 to get help. And you can get back on track very quickly at those points, because when you're getting back on track at stage 3, it takes longer. Obviously, it will do, because now you're disconnected from your child and there's a lot of bad feelings, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt to overcome. Yes, it can be overcome, and we do overcome it, but know that the journey is longer in bringing it back. So if you're unsure of the best way to parent your child, that, as I'm speaking and going through the stages, that you're at stage 1. Don't wait for the problems to appear in stage 2. Don't wait for your child's behavior to worsen. You can already tell, at all stages, if your parenting is going the way you want and you're getting the results you want. And if it's not going to plan, then get in touch. We can have a private 1-to-1 30-minute coaching session to find out what stage of parenting you're at and what you need to do to get back on track with your parenting, so that you actually end up enjoying your time with your child and making the most of the opportunity to guide your child, instead of fearing and seeing the worst unfold. So the link to book one of these Happy Home Discovery sessions is in the link below or above this podcast, depending on where you're listening to it. But definitely, if these stages are resonating, you can see you're in 1 or 2 or 3 of them, then get in touch, before things worsen. And I have a tailor-made solution for whichever stage you're at to get you back on track quickly. Now, understanding, these 3 stages of disconnected parenting is really important, because now you can see that the distance started coming and this was a build-up. This happened as a result of the build-up. What we do as parents along the way, either we speed up the process or we make the worst inevitable. And this is what I want to draw your attention to for the purpose of today's podcast. The 3 mindset mistakes that, mothers make that end up speeding up the process, or leading their child to leaving home. Not that we're doing it on purpose, but when we don't realize, that's exactly what we do. So you need to see if you're making one of these mistakes or all of them. Here's the first one. Number 1, when you see that you're in this stage where your child is not respecting you, you try harder to stamp your authority on your child in order to gain the respect back. But we're talking about a stage where your child is ready to ignore you. They're doing their own thing. So when you stamp down your authority on them, that just makes matters worse. Now your child feels backed into a corner, and the only way forward is either to respect you or head for the door. But you can't force your child to respect you by forcing them to respect your boundaries. The two is not the same, and this is a very common mistake we make. And when we make this mistake of coming down hard on our child, screaming and shouting at them, being harsh, really blasting them, putting stronger boundaries around them to keep them close, cutting off access to everything they have, almost shutting down their outside life so that they have to fix their inside home life, we actually end up, pushing our child further away. And coming down hard on them doesn't make them respect you more. It actually makes them respect you less. Because you can't force a disconnected child into submission and then expect that they will respect you or respect your boundaries. Naturally, when we feel forced, we push back. It's human nature. So you can see why this would go against you if that's what you're trying to do in order to force your child to listen to you or stay close to you. The second mistake we make is actually fearing the worst that will happen. Fearing that our child will leave and not come back, fearing that we failed as a parent, fearing that our child will come off the path of the dean or off track completely in their schoolwork and building a successful life. And the fear, when we start imagining what's going to happen, consumes us. So much so that we actually start living as if we're there already. If you're already living in the worst nightmare that you can imagine, because you'll feel like you're in a daze. Your mind is constantly cloudy. You can't think, you can't focus. In fact, you end up having to switch off from what's going on around you, and you're not doing what you need to do. You're not getting things done. You're unable to give your child what they need, your other children, that is, and you're in a constant state of anxiety, feeling helpless that this awful thing is happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the worst is, because your child is still home, at this point, you feel resentful and angry at your child that they're doing this to you, doing this to your family. And when you feel like this and you're blaming your child, you end up acting cold and withdrawn from the child that you fear losing. And because we're constantly angry at them for putting us through this, they start keeping further away from us. They feel like an even bigger disappointment, and they feel like it would be better for everyone if they just left. However, here's the thing. In fearing the worst, we start living as if that doomed future has already happened, and it hasn't happened yet. We're living a made-up nightmare, made up in our minds of fearing the worst, and in doing so, what we end up doing is actually pushing our children closer to that door. Number 3, the third biggest mindset mistakes that mothers make in this situation is that when they feel that they're close to losing their child, they give up. They say to themselves, there's nothing more I can do. I have done everything I can as a parent, and now it's on them. They will have to learn the hard way. They'll have to go out in the real world and realize what they had and appreciate what they had here. Yes, it's true. A child will never truly appreciate what their parents did for them until they're faced in a similar place where they're having to raise a family, provide for their family, and do things alone. But normally that realization comes for many people later in life when they marry and settle down. But what about the all those years in between, the best years of their life when they're building their future? Most people end up lost for many years before they realize. They end up sabotaging their life, making poor choices, hanging out with the wrong friends, losing out on their education opportunities before they actually realize what they have. The truth is, just as your child, will appreciate it at some point, they're also going to suffer a huge loss in their life in that process of realizing and learning. So giving up and thinking they need to learn the hard way actually means that our child feels like, that's it. I have no choice now. I give up too. And they go and they try and figure it out. However, here's another truth. We might think that, once they've gone and they've learnt the hard way, then, things will start to get better. But the moment they walk out the door is the moment you also appreciate your child. Suddenly you'll realize that there was more you could have done and want to do, and that you can't actually bear seeing them go through that difficulty where they are wasting the best years of their life and not even coming to you for help and not even being around you so you can support them or comfort them in any way or do anything for them. And it's unlikely that they'll come back and ask you for help because they have too much pride because you gave up on them. So this is not the better road, my sister, and only in rare cases do children leave, realize, and then fix up. There are underlying issues that led to this point, and your child fixing up alone won't resolve those issues. The real issues need to be addressed for a peaceful, happy home, and for you and your child to finally feel ease and enjoyment in each other's company, to feel that bond and enjoy that bond. So if you're wanting some clarity on where you're at in your parenting and what you're doing that might be making things worse and what changes you need to make in order to bring your child closer to you, then get in touch. Book that discovery call with me and discover what you're not seeing about how to solve your challenges at home. Ultimately, what every mother wants is to feel confident, connected, and deeply bonded with their child. And when we address and recognize these mindset mistakes, it's an essential part of bringing your child closer to you and creating that harmonious and loving family dynamic that you seek. When you do that, you'll find that you'll sleep more peacefully at night again. You'll be able to enjoy your life again. You'll feel like you're living again, and your life is moving forward in a good way. When you address these issues, my sister, like the other sisters I work with, you'll be living and smiling like a successful mom. You'll be walking like a successful mom, living and walking through her best life, doing her best and enjoying, the fruits of your effort, inshallah. So thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Happy Home Podcast. And I really hope you're walking away feeling hopeful and empowered that you can actually turn this situation around, that you don't need to keep driving towards that brick wall, that there's help out there, that you can actually press the brakes, turn around and drive towards a happier you and a happier home. So until next time, my sister, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family with love, peace and an understanding. And I'll see you on that discovery call, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.